Hello and welcome to Eat Sleep Code, the official Telerik podcast. Let's talk about some .NET first, John. Let me get my screen share. .NET 9 Preview 7 is now available.
That's right. That's right. So this dropped just recently. So .NET 9 Preview 7 is now available. It's time to basically update your bits. So you can install these pretty easily, these previews. This is on our march to .NET 9, which is soon to be here. A bunch of improvements made to obviously .NET 9 Preview 7. A bunch of stuff around libraries. A bunch of stuff added to the runtime. We have innovations around C#, innovations around ASP.NET Core, which I think a lot of people are going to find interesting. So lots of stuff to kind of wet your whistle or get your hands dirty.
Yeah, I brought some of the .NET 9 updates as part of the show, or the Blazor updates with .NET 9 as part of the show as well. So we can talk a little bit about those since we're on the topic of what's in the latest preview. So John Hilton wrote on the Telerik blogs about this, and there's some new stuff with static web app assets. And the idea here is you want the browser to cache the static web assets, and if there's a change, you don't want the browser to have to do a lot of work to figure out if the file is a new file or not. You want it to just immediately pull the new assets if they are new. We used to use like cache busters and weird query strings and things like that. There's a new convention in here that they're using. You kind of wrap your reference to the asset with this asset helper, I guess you want to call it, and it puts a unique file around. So it takes the file, compresses it, and then fingerprints it. So the output ends up getting like this little query string attached to it, or not query string, but file name, unique identifier attached to it. This happens at build time, I believe, and then the browser will see this as a new file because the file name will change, and that will immediately blow out the cache for that and download the new asset. So that is in there. Improved server reconnection UX in Blazor. So server-side Blazor always had like a screen that would come up and say rejoining the server, and it was kind of wonky looking. There's a nice new pop-up on there with a better message. It's totally customizable. Let's see, new render mode stuff. They added the new render modes in .NET 8. However, there was no way to inspect those render modes and view them in or make decisions on them via code. So you might want to serve up maybe some different content or a different component, something like that. If you're running from server-side rendering or WebAssembly, now you can do that with this new like property inspector. So it's renderinfo.isInteractive. That'll pull back a flag for you so you can do some kind of switching around that. And then there's automatically serialize and share authentication states between the server and client, so making auth much easier and seamless across Blazor. So Blazor, again, has that WebAssembly and server render mode, and you can automatically switch between those. You start getting authentication involved, and then things get kind of haywire. So this fixes that problem.
So all of this is to say that we're building up, obviously, everything here for the launch in November around .NET Conf. Incidentally, we will be a part of .NET Conf 2024. You can save the date today.
Likewise.
Yes. So that'll be interesting to see how that sort of stuff come to bear.
Absolutely. Let's see here. We've got more .NET news. .NET Conf, just like you were talking about, save the date, jump into dev blogs at Microsoft.com, or you can go to .NET.conf, is it? Let's see. Yeah, .NETconf.net. .dotnet conf.net. You could go there. there's just a basic announcement now, but they will add speakers and all of that once they have everything. They just put out a
Yeah,
CSP to
there's a call for
MVPs.
content as well.
Yeah. I don't think it's linked off of this page,
It
but
is.
I did.
It's call for content is listed there. It's there's a sessionized link there.
Oh, where do you see a sessionized link?
Search for sessionize. Oh, maybe not on the
Is it
homepage,
right?
but
Okay.
on the blog
Oh,
post.
it was on the blog post. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry.
So I shared that page. It's on. All right. Call for
Yeah, there you
content
go.
submit now. Yeah, interesting. I got to come up with some ideas. I've been part of like the last 3 .NET Confs.
Right.
I got to check that one out. There's not a lot of innovation in the Blazor space other than the few things that I mentioned. And that's my wheelhouse. So
All right.
I don't know exactly what I'd cover if I did share something for .NET Conf. We've got just a little bit more Microsoft stuff here with Copilot Content Exclusion now available for Visual Studio. So what this does is it adds a filter for Copilot. So when you're using GitHub Copilot within Visual Studio, it is doing auto completions and things based on the code that you want to write. And it is scanning your code base to try to help you autocomplete things. There may be content that you want to leave out of that. And you can do that now with these exclusions. You can block certain files from being part of the Copilot experience.
Nice.
So I'm sure this is out of concerns for
Chatty.
IP, things leaking through the AI, stuff like that. So it's not only a security feature, but also probably to help, keep needless junk out. Maybe there's just parts of the code base you're not, writing code for. You don't need your AI learning stuff from it and trying to suggest things that you're not, interested in rewriting. Speaking of AI, John.
Oh, good. Here we go.
This is actually something I couldn't get into. I wish it worked for me. It did not work for me. Maybe it'll work for some other folks. John, I know it's not going to work for you. It's for US only. I tried this out. Didn't work for me. So this is the new AI Studio for Meta. And if you click Get Started Now, I have the button. I didn't have this earlier. Yesterday, my Create AI button, I clicked it, it threw an exception, and then when I went back, the button was gone and I couldn't get it again. So maybe they're doing like some kind of staggered rollout or something like that. So if you log into your AI or your Meta account, whether it's Instagram or otherwise one of their other properties, you can find your way here to AI Studio or go to aistudio.instagram.com. And supposedly, since I didn't get a chance to check it out, this is how I understand it works. You can create an AI chatbot through this interface. So you click on Create AI and then you follow like a wizard type of a thing, and you will create your own chatbot based on things that you want it to talk about. So other people have made theirs and published them, and I guess you access these through Instagram.
So Two things I have to say about this. One, good on Meta to do this because they're following the Microsoft playbook by doing this. So create a developer tool around this to win the developer audience. And two, this strikes me as like Microsoft Agent. I don't know if you remember, but there was an Agent SDK back in the day where you could have like a beyond Clippy. There was like Merlin and all these other the Wizard. There was all these types of agents you could program, and they would respond to your text input. This strikes me as something very similar to that.
Yeah, and the idea here isn't to have like a real human interaction. You could see like they've kind of marketed it as an AI character. So they're trying to tailor this to be cartoony body. It's not meant to be taken like serious. And you're not gonna like drop a politician's name in here or something and expect that to like fly. So you can build your AI character choose who can chat with it. And let's see what else happens when we hit getting started here. We'll do a little live demo. So you can kind of customize the base character for it and then add what the character does. And then supposedly you can add things that like ChatGPT and image generation tools like DALL-E and stuff can do to
Right.
it. So you can give it AI abilities, and then you can publish it to Instagram or your followers or just yourself
why
or
not?
whatever. You could scope it to access. So that's interesting. And it says your AI character. So I guess you can make more than one of them and have a list here.
Yeah.
Interesting stuff. Don't know if I'll use this or how I would use this, but who knows?
But to my point, I mean, like, this is the Microsoft play. You win the developer audience. So I think this is whoever came up with this idea, who's ever implementing this idea, this is a good strategy, even if no one uses it. I mean,
I'm not sure if
trying
this
to win
is
the
a developer or a general consumer play, because I think this is open to anybody, and it doesn't require like API keys and all of the developer-y things. Like, we're not writing code here. I think this is a very simplified WYSIWYG type of an interface.
tech enthusiast. Let's go with that.
Yeah, there you go.
Enthusiast market.
But I could see, 10, 20 years from now, somebody going, yeah, I got interested in AI and programming because of that meta AI character thing, like when I was a kid. I know there's a lot of people that use those, what was the Tamagotchi thing that they had?
Yeah.
That was, it was primarily marketed to females at the time. So there's a lot of women in tech that I know that have started with those things. What were those called? If anybody remembers, chime in, let me know. That's what those things were. I didn't have one, so I don't know. But they were apparently like a huge like toy, like a fad toy back in the day, and got a lot of people into tech, which is cool. All right, switch gears a little bit. We're talking about AI. We're going to go on to some web dev stuff. I thought this was a pretty cool post. This is kind of an analysis of login screens or sign-up pages, rather.
Yep.
So the gist of it is they took different sign-up screens and did like A/B testing and looked at like some of the more popular apps that are out there, Spotify, Nextdoor, Ring. Did some redesigns and let people choose what the better experience was. And every time the simplified version would win out. So they've got a nice little diagram here over what's considered like a functional design. Some pop-up came up really big there. There's a functional design, then there's an illustrated design, and then it goes full off into carousels and slideshows, and then there's like background animations and video, and then there's like on a scale of functional to delightful, which is, it's like simple to fancy, basically. So here's the control and the experiment, and people preferred, like, I just want to create an account or sign in. Like, just give me the button. I don't want to see a full motion video of somebody's joyride through the neighborhood. A lot of these all ended up the same way. It's simple, but you know where your interactions are. This one's really bad. This is Nextdoor. You can hardly tell where the UX is.
Yeah, it's busy.
These are more or less the same to me, but people say, things got lost when you start adding all these bubbles with the artists up top. So I thought it was an interesting post. It's like, simplify things down. It doesn't have to be a work of art when we just need to log in. Like, this is the screen we're trying to get past, right? Like, we want to get in the app and do the thing.
We don't want
to spend a bunch of time like watching an animation or trying to figure out like what's going on in this picture. Like, just give me the button to click.
Yeah, so my reaction to sign up pages is this. If you don't have integration with Google or Apple or some other mechanism that is a third-party provider, I immediately
Mhm.
start to dislike you. I do not like it when I have to create new accounts. Worse
I
than
don't
that,
either.
I have to create passwords that are, you've come up with some magical pattern that apparently is going to thwart all the hackers.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't, oh, the worst by far is you can't copy and paste from your password manager. Um, if someone decides they're going to disable that capability via JavaScript, I am not going to use, I don't care how good your app is. I refuse to use it. I'm just sorry. I don't want to know my passwords. I shouldn't have to know my passwords. So let me log in via Google or some other means, or if you need an email and password, let me paste those in via password manager.
Yeah, I remember there was a bank that I was trying to sign into, and the bank was trying to make me have a password that was like a certain length, and it's like, how is this a good practice? It's like, this is scary that this is a bank doing this. It's
It's
like, it
not a good
can't
practice.
be.
I know exactly why that happens. It's because in the database they set the character limit, and so
Yeah,
they can't go beyond that. And then the hash that's generated is going
yeah,
to give
that's
you a
usually it.
character limit. Yeah.
Yeah. So more web dev stuff with React. This is an interesting read about React and the useOptimistic hook. And this should sound familiar once I explain what this does. I know you've probably dealt with this before, John. So imagine for a minute, you have a CRUD form or something like that, like a create, read, update, delete
Mm-hmm.
situation. You've got a form on the screen. Maybe you delete something, right? So you make a delete and you have a list of items you just deleted an item from. You don't want to wait for the server to fully like delete the item from the database, come back with a response before the UI takes that item out of the database or out of the view. What you want to do is say, all right, on the client in the state that's being represented on the screen, let's go ahead and take that item out of the grid, the list, whatever that view is. And then we'll go ahead and send that request off to the server. The server deletes it and then comes back later and is like, okay, that thing's actually deleted now. If for some reason it fails, you can go back and say that thing, there was an error. Let's go back and like roll back the interface for the person and let them know something failed. So this is an optimistic hook that lets you do something like that.
Yeah, you
So
can update the UI based on some long-standing network call that will update something somewhere so that users aren't left waiting for some kind of response from the server, which is obviously crucial for maintaining a smooth user experience.
absolutely. So that's what this whole post is about. It goes into detail with some examples. I think this is a really cool idea. Something I need to look at Blazor a little bit and see how it handles that sort of thing. I've done it with I call it the single source of truth, right? Your server is generally the single source of truth. So you want to sync up with that server on the back end, but usually have some kind of state management that's local to either the front end part of the app, whether it's running on WebAssembly, it might be there. That's taking it's taking things out of the view of the user and updating the user's view, but in the back end, it's syncing up that single source of truth with the server. So it seems like the optimistic hook is the way to do that in React. It's pretty neat. On to some DevOps, John. Decoding the
Sure.
real estate of DevOps in
Real estate.
2024.
The real estate, not the real
The real
estate, but there
estate.
you
I
go.
know it sounds like real estate.
So this is a post from Eric Mimic, who's a member of Harness. Harness is a CDF member. So there's a couple of reports here that are mentioned. The first is the State of Developer Experience, which is a report that's authored and sponsored by Harness. The second is the State of CI/CD report, which is a report that is sponsored and partially authored by the CD Foundation. It's really Slashdata, which is another, it's a survey-based group that the UK that does that. But essentially what Eric's talking about here is that there are some interesting observations that are made in both reports. So in the case of both the State of Developer Experience and the State of CI/CD reports, there's some interesting, let's say, acknowledgments about the things like the complexity of tooling, the issues around performance metrics and the trends that they encompass, and then the impact of experience. The biggest one for me, and this is an observation we made when we looked at the report, because we're a member of the CD Foundation as well, is what we like to call the tool dilemma. So the idea is that developer experience and CI/CD both leverage a great deal of tooling. What the State of CI/CD report found is that actually teams that utilized more tools were found to be more productive or more performant. And you would think that would be somewhat contradictory. A lot of people talk about how the state of tooling today, there's too many tools. I can't keep track of everything that's happening here. It's like a Rube Goldberg machine at work here. But the reality is that in both instances, it is a bit of a contradiction. So it is interesting to see how these things, in general, the insights that Eric's provides here and also in these report, they paint a picture generally of the industry that has widely embraced DevOps practices, which is great, but there's a lot of folks who are still grappling with how to optimize their implementation. And so we're encouraged by this. We at Octopus Deploy, DevOps adoption is critically important to us because we want to see people utilize things like continuous integration, continuous deployment, etc. But the bar that we're trying to set here is achieving that consistently high performance. That's always going to be a challenging aspect to this. And it definitely speaks to the fact that when you've got less experienced developers on your team or less experienced organizations, sadly, they have a really tough time with this. Dealing with these complex tool chains can be a lot of work. So essentially, go slow, utilize what works, implement best practices where you can, but definitely take a step forward. And the longest journey begins with a single step. I know it sounds cliche, it is, but you definitely have to start looking at this for your organizations if you want to get any semblance or balance around doing these types of practices. So this is a blog post that talks about that.
Yeah, I like this first section I highlighted here. It's 97% of developers report context switching due to using tools from multiple vendors.
Yeah.
This is something that Visual Studio's done well, like keeps you inside of Visual Studio, bringing in Git, stuff like that. I like to use this as this quote here as a reason for using something like our product, like Kendo UI or Telerik UI.
Sure.
Because all of our UI bits are in one bucket together, so you don't have like a lot of people are they want to save money, so they go grab like some free UI thing, and maybe you got some nice form.
Excuse me.
Yeah, I mean Bootstrap's a good one. Maybe you got some nice form elements you pull out of Bootstrap, and you're like, but now I need some charts, right? And then they go out and they get some free chart UI thing, and then they're like, well, now I need a really good data grid. This one's free, and then they grab that. Now you got 3 different UI front-end tools. They all have different CSS style sheets. They all have different APIs. They all have different documentation. And when you're working in the web app, you got to dart around between all of these different things. And God forbid you need support. So you go to 3 different GitHubs and launch an issue. You know what I mean? When you could have just went and bought the one thing that has all of the stuff and paid up front and not cost yourself a bunch of time on the backside. That's usually one of my go-to reasons that I chose to use these tools back when I was a customer.
Yeah,
but I love that.
That is an issue. I'm not arguing that is an issue, but I see it as a smaller issue in relative terms compared to when you're talking about CI/CD, where you have systems, a pipeline.
Oh yeah,
you have systems talking to each other. Like we go from Jira for issue management over to GitHub, and then GitHub Actions, and then we move over to possibly Octopus Deploy, and then we're deploying across all these cloud providers. Like that is a tough problem. My
Yeah.
advice or my experience that I've had with that is if systems do not natively talk to each other, then you should stitch them together via an underpinning workflow. There are a lot of ways to do this. You can even go as simple as underpinning it with a workflow that's based in something like Zapier, for example, or Workato. I'm a
Hmm.
big advocate of those because essentially once you pass control over to one of those things, you can do a whole bunch of stitching together these systems. That is, I think, speaking to the complexity of this tooling, that getting systems to talk to each other is a nightmare in some cases. Like, oh, we
Yeah.
got the build, we got the DLL. Now what? It's like that scene out of oh gosh, what is it? The Pixar movie where the fish, Nemo, Finding Nemo, they're all in their individual little bags there, and they're in the Sydney harbor, and then they all look at each other and they're like, "Now what? Now what do we do?" So similar type of situation there.
Yeah. When you talk about tooling like this too, I mean, you're talking about different authentication uh, systems, different portals to log into. You're
Right.
talking about getting into like the Azure portal or some other utility for uh, uploading or getting your data into the server or service that you're trying to launch it in. Yeah, it could get quite complex. That alone would hang me up for sure. All right, John. I want to start talking about some of your favorite things. Oh wait, I have
Yes.
one more
Do
web
we have a
dev
do we have a
first.
segue video for this? Don't we have a
I,
don't we
I wish we had a.
can it run Doom
We need a
sort of
can it
segue?
trigger John.
Yes.
Um, I'll get to that in a minute. First, we
Yeah, yeah.
have something nice. React design patterns. We talked about design patterns last week for JavaScript. I found one
Yep.
for React this week.
Nice.
So learn how to apply design patterns to your React applications. This one has some stuff that's very specific to React, which I thought was good because it wasn't the usual. Like we had JavaScript last week. Like these are JavaScript patterns. And those patterns are kind of similar to the ones that are in C# and so on. This one is very much like React, like a custom hook pattern, when to use it, when not to use it. Let's see, there's some more down
The
here.
other
Just
one
kind of
that
want to go through
most
the
people, when they use
headlines.
React, is the higher order component or hawk
Oh,
pattern.
there you
That
go.
one is used all the time if you're a React developer. So the
Yep,
idea
right
is you take
there.
a composition technique. So it's similar in class or OO techniques, is that you take a
Mm-hmm.
composition approach to React, and that allows you to reuse logic between components. So it's basically a hawk, or you know, high order component is a function, takes a component and it returns a new component with additional or extended functionality.
Absolutely. I use that quite often in Blazor as well. Extensible styles pattern. This actually borrows from kind of the extensibility pattern. It's talking about CSS,
Yep.
adding dynamic CSS properties to classes that can be modified. I actually have a whole talk just on that. So nice to see it being represented here. Compound component pattern. So just trying to hitting up like the highlights here because there's quite a few of them.
Hmm.
Control and props and so on. If you want to read all of those different patterns, you can find it in the article. I'll post these on my LinkedIn page. So again, great post there. Now we can move on to some more abstract, bigger and better things, John.
Not better. Not better.
MetaConnect
Oh,
2024 is coming.
here we go.
Rumors and announcements are hitting. All of the latest things in AR, VR, and AI.
Wonderful.
So this is a speculation article. They've announced the dates for it. This is a yearly event, so it's not like, you know, there's too much of a crystal ball involved here. But it's scheduled now for September 25th and 26th. Times have not been announced yet. Neither have any of the real details of it. But you can expect some things about the Ray-Ban smart glasses, Quest 3, generative AI,
Sure.
and then, of course,
Great.
all of the mainstay stuff like WhatsApp, Instagram, Facebook, all of that is in there as well. Rumor has it there's going to be some new devices. This is where I think think you might get a little triggered, John. I think all of us might be a little triggered by this
I'm
one.
not triggered.
Just wait. All right, so there's some underlying threads in here. If I could find where to pull it from. Let's see. There are new. What will Meta announce? Let's see if we can find it. Oh, here we go. So far, we have the Horizon OS, and from third-party companies, Asus, Microsoft, and Quest 3S should be another big topic of discussion, right? Microsoft's mentioned in here. And with that, Microsoft mentioned, we have another speculative article that Microsoft's next big product could be an Apple Vision Pro rival. Are they bringing back the HoloLens? This one features a Samsung-made display and a Horizon OS, possibly. Maybe released in September at the event. Who knows? Microsoft will incorporate mixed reality that rivals the Apple Vision Pro. Could launch the product as soon as next year, or at least announce it in September at the Meta Connect conference, right, John?
Okay, I'll let you keep talking. I'll give you my opinion in a sec.
I want to hear,
got my arms crossed.
hear your opinion.
Got my arms crossed here. Here we go.
Microsoft doing hardware again. Let's hear it. Let's.
Well, if you look at the capital expenditures by Microsoft, they are not investing in this right now. I mean, they are investing everything they can into AI.
They
so,
are.
you know, this is going to be peanuts by comparison. The amount of money, if this is true, if they decide to do something like this, I think they should stay out of this game. I don't think this is not the future. I'm sorry, but this is not the future. The future is right now is trying to win the AI space. That is what everyone's going after right now. So I think this is a distraction. And I think that Microsoft, if I could just speak plainly, Microsoft would do really, really well to just ignore all this noise and just focus on getting the AI story as crisp and as awesome as they can. That's my opinion.
So here's my take on it. If they do something with this, I don't think it should be branded under Microsoft. It should be under Xbox. I know they're the same beast.
Okay. Yeah, I'm with you.
Let's get a Microsoft Xbox VR headset. There's a PSVR headset.
It. Yeah.
It recently got compatibility with the PC, so you could do PC VR with it.
Right.
I think that's starting to encroach on what Microsoft does best, and that is gaming with the PC.
Yep.
So why not release an Xbox VR headset that's running the Meta OS? It lets you game on the PC, but also there is an app for Meta already that is the Xbox Cloud Gaming app that lets you play the Xbox library with an Xbox subscription without an Xbox.
Fair enough.
That is a thing you can do today with the Quest 3. You do not have to own an Xbox. You're basically renting it. So you get a cloud subscription. It used to be quite cheap. Now it is not. So that's kind of an issue for me personally. Like it was. I'm trying to remember how much it was. You used to get like the Xbox Live subscription. You pay $1 more, and it'll give you like a year to all of the stuff. Now it's something like $18 a month. It's like it really went up in price quite a bit. So it's cheaper than buying hardware outright, I suppose. If you already have the headset and a controller, you're good to go for a subscription fee, and you can access all sorts of games. You don't have to worry about, DVDs and setting up a machine. You don't even have to have a TV. It's great for kids and parents, right? How many times have the kids wanted to play on the big screen and they, maybe they don't have one of their own. They want to play in the living room. It's like, here,
I'm with
take
you.
this.
I'm with you, Ed. I think if you're going to pursue this, a big if you're going to pursue this, yes, just give it over to Xbox. I think they tried this though with the Kinect. I think I think the Kinect was as far as Microsoft was willing to go, and they made a massive investment in that. I don't know. I think, again, I come back to my original point. I think this is a giant distraction. I don't think they need this. I think that let other people fight this out. I would say, I don't think we're there. I don't think we're there in this space yet. I think we're a long way off.
Dude, Microsoft, launch this headset, give people a first year free or first 6 months free of Xbox Ultimate and a controller with this thing, and let the subscriptions flow after that, right? That's what I'm saying. Like, can you imagine? You don't have to have the Xbox hardware anymore. You just put this thing on, you grab your controller, you log in, you got all the games. You got a 200-inch TV to play them on.
It's bigger fish to fry than this, in my opinion.
It was a pretty good experience.
You make a good point. You make a good point.
Yeah,
you make a good point.
The Xbox Ultimate app for the Quest is actually a pretty good experience.
All right.
I personally, at my age, just don't have the time to enjoy for the price of admission. Is my problem.
All
like,
right.
I just don't have that kind of spare time. If I did, it'd probably be a worthy investment to pay the subscription. But I'd have to like play and complete like 2 games a month or something like that for it to be worth my while. I got barely any time to think, let alone jump into VR to play 2D games for hours on end per day. But that's my take on it. And then I forgot this article. It was in my shameless plugs because it's on our Telerik blogs. This is understanding error handling in modern Next.js apps. This is actually trending and doing very well, so I thought I'd bring it up here too. I don't do Next.js development, but this is kind of your usual, like, how do I handle errors in X framework type of an article. Goes through all the different scenarios of like client side, server side, because Next.js has that ability to run much like Blazor, like server side, client side processing. So what do we do with server side errors, client side errors, how to set up error boundaries, what to do with page routing when there's an error. All of those things are covered in this nice blog post up on the Telerik blogs. So I will share that as well.
I assume people know what Next.js is, for example.
Yeah, so Next.js is a framework that is built off of React, and it enables developers to do server-side rendering as well. Is this, let's see, is Next.js the one from, I'm trying to remember who the vendor is attached to Next.js. Vercel. Yeah. So you can jump over to nextjs.org and check it out there if you're into Next.js. But this is essentially one of the frameworks that, all these frameworks get inspired by each other at some point. But Blazor and .NET 8 took some cues from this one. I think they kind of got inspired by some of the ways it was handling the client and server rendering. So this is very similar in that regard. So it lets you do that isomorphic rendering type of a thing where it's like, I can pre-render on the server, I can render directly from the server, do interactivity, I can let the client handle all of it, or I can automatically switch between the two whenever I see fit type of thing. So it's got some cool features to it. And when you have all of those different moving pieces, you have to handle errors in lots of different modalities, right? So you got your client side, your server side. You've got different parts of the page that can break at different points. You don't want your whole app to go down because some widget off on the sidebar tried to connect to a service in the background and failed, right? You want it to error in a small window, in the panel it's in, and not take the whole app down, that sort of thing. So good read up on telerik.com/blogs, and I will share these all on my LinkedIn page as well. Any parting words for the audience, John?
Nope. Hope everyone has a good weekend.
Likewise, I've got my weekly Blazor stream Wednesday at 11 o'clock to 12 o'clock. We're doing some solar panel experiments. So we're building a Blazor application
Nice.
with live data from one of my coworkers, Lance McCarthy. You know Lance, John. He's got
Yes, I do.
solar panels in Costa Rica that is sending live data out to our Blazor application. We're front-ending that, making a dashboard out of it. We've been having a lot of fun with that. And then, of course, I come here Thursday and talk about the news with you, which is always fun and refreshing. And then after I'm done triggering you, John, I'm going to be starting a new show on Friday. So this is the first that anybody's really hearing of it. But in about 3 weeks, on Friday, or no, sorry, whoops, is it? Yeah, September 6th, it looks like. I'm going to be joining Chris DeMars, and we're going to be doing, and this is a fun twist on words here. It is going to be Full Stack Friday, spelt FRIDAI, because AI at the end there. So we're going to do some mashups of front end development with AI on the back end.
Okay.
So we'll
Nice.
do some practical examples of how to use AI in your apps. How do I hook up ChatGPT to my front end? How do I get images, generated and put in my app? How do I
Nuts and
use my
gum
app?
together at last.
Yeah.
Sorry.
How do I do things? Because we see AI everywhere, right? It's like everybody's preaching about, AI is the next big thing, but like nobody knows where to like stick it in their app and actually do something with it. So we're going to come up with some practical examples of like, hey, these things actually work together and we could use AI to do this, and it's really cool. So I've got some demos and things that we can build on the show. Chris DeMars is working for DigitalOcean. He's very knowledgeable of front-end development, and I've done full stack for 20 years, so we're going to put our heads together and come up with some cool things to demo on Fridays. All right, that's all I've got, John. Take care.